Okay, so welcome to the continuation for this tutorial. So we are still in week 1 and we were discussing about for loops and arrays. So we previously started with arrays, so that was video 1.0. So we are going to continue with for loops, so we understand how a for loop statement works. Okay, so this is the slide we are using. So we are just still looking at the basics for arrays and for loops. So in this video we're going to understand how a for loop works. So I've separated these two particular topics based on these tutorials because of power. As you can see, I'm trying to do a video for loops. So let's work on that. So the first thing, you need to understand how to start a project. So number one, you create a folder. So in this case we right click and then we create a folder which is called for loop statement. Okay. So once you create a folder, you open up your Microsoft Visual Studio Code. So do that, and then once you open up Microsoft Visual Studio Code, you click on open folder. Then since my folder is on the desktop, I'll select that particular folder, then say select folder, like that. Okay, just say yes, trust the authors. So now inside this folder for loop statement, you can click on this to add the file. So our file will be called introduction, because this is just the introduction to for loops. So you specify the extension by saying .cpp for C++, then the extension will change to a C++ program. So after that is done, now you can start writing your program. So we said each and every program start with hashtag include IOStream. Okay, so we're including this IOStream library because we want to accept both input and output. So input was the cin and then output was the cout. So both cin and cout are part of the namespace std standard. No wonder we also need to use the namespace std. Okay, so in this std we also have the end line. Okay, so each and every program should have a main function. So each and every function starts with the type. In this case it's an integer, then the name, then these symbols, and then in the curly braces, then inside the curly braces we say return. Then we need to return something based on the type. So because it's an integer, we'll return a 0, which is also an integer. Okay, so this was just a quick recap. Well, now we start to write each and every C++ program, but it can vary depending on what you're trying to do. So I'm going to give a comment. So we also talked about comment, so I'll use a single line comment which has double slash, like that. So since we're talking about for loops, I'm going to specify a question which will help us to understand for loops. So write a C++ program that will display the given the matrix you are given. So I'll show it using the paired comment, which is this. So we are given 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so this is the matrix we are given below. So now I'll give a comment again saying 4 loops. So we're talking about 4 loops. So we need to understand one thing first. Since we talked about arrays, so I'm going to start up with arrays, then we combine it with for loops. So if you want to display this matrix, we said an array supposed to have a type. So since this matrix is consisting of numbers, so the type is an integer, you say int for integer, then you give it a name. So because I'm trying to display the matrix, I'll just say matrix. Okay, then after that we said we use these symbols where we specify the total number of elements we have in this particular array, which is more like a set. So in this case, a matrix has what we call rows and columns. So to make you understand this, let me write up something. Okay, so this matrix which you are given can be written as this. So if we are just using our pens or whatsoever, so these are called rows. So these are rows. Okay, then this direction is called column. Okay, column. So this time around we have 2 elements. One are rows, then the others are columns. Okay, so how many so this first box will represent rows. We need to have another box which is that which will represent the columns, like that, because we have rows and columns. So how many rows do we have? 1, 2. So we have 2 rows, we say 2. Then how many columns do we have? 1, 2. So we say 2. Okay, so after we say that, we said each and every array, after you specify the elements, the number of elements, you put an equal sign, then curly braces. Then after you put these curly braces, now you put those elements which are contained in a set. So in this case, the elements are 2, 4, 6, 8. So how can we write this? Normally, we would say, since we have in the first example when we talked about array, we had numbers from 1 to 6. Okay, so we had numbers so let me just put an example of arrays. So an example of arrays, we had numbers from 1 to 6. Because we had numbers from 1 to 6, we said int, because it's their numbers, we give it a name which is numbers. Then since we have numbers from 1 to 6, there are 6 elements, then we say equal sign, curly braces, then those elements were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's how we write this particular array. Okay, then coming back to this matrix, coming back to this matrix again, we are saying, since it's containing numbers, we can say int, then we give it a name which is matrix, so it has 2 rows, 2 columns. Now those are elements. So if you can see in the first example, since we have 6 total number of elements, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these elements adding up to 6. But for a matrix, since we have 2 rows, 2 columns, 2 plus 2, it means we can have a total number of 4 elements. If we count these numbers, they are 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the meaning. But how can we write this? So you start with your curly braces like that, but instead of writing 2, 4, 6, 8 like that, like we did in this first example, to represent this, we want to do it like this. Remember, um, these 2 and 4 are belonging to this row. Okay, so it's more like these 2 numbers are a pair and these 2 numbers are a pair. So what we can do is to put a curly brace here, then just a minute, we put it here and here like that. So we are showing that these 2 numbers are pairs. Also 6 and 8 are pairs. So I'll put this and that. So that's the meaning. But for me to write it in a proper way, I'll do like this. Okay. This is what we'll do. Okay. So say 2, 4, then comma. Okay. We are done with this pair. Now we are coming to this pair. So we do 6, 8, but I want to put a comma because as you can see here we don't have a comma. It's more like if you have the last pair, you cannot put a comma. More like we have 6 but you don't have another number, so no comma, just like this. But we end each and every array with this, so here we include that. Okay, so this is how we can do that. Now this is how we apply an array to a matrix. So let's continue with now understanding how for loops work. So for loop, now we are coming to for loops. Okay. So for a for loop, you just need to start with 4. Okay. Once you write 4, you need to understand one thing. So since we have rows and columns, it means we need to have 2 variables. So we talked about variables. It's something which can store a value of something such as rows and columns. So we need to have a variable which will store the value for rows. So we can come up with a variable such as I, and we need a variable which can store the number of columns, which will be j. So this is vice versa, by the way. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to come up with 2 variables which will store the variables which are rows and columns. So here we'll say for, because these are integers, we'll say for int I, which can store a variable of rows, is equal to, now if we were talking about positions, so we learned about coordinates in grade 12. So we said if we want to specify the position or the coordinate for this number, we need to know its position. So if we say the position is starting at 0 for the rows, then the column 1. So we are incrementing from 0 to 1. So even here it can be 0 then 1. So for us to specify the position for 2, we say 0 comma 0. That's the position for 2. To specify the position for 4, we say 0 comma 1. The position for 6, we say 1 comma 0. The position for 8, we say 1 comma 1. Okay. Now since we understand that based on this example, our positions are starting at 0 then ending at 1. Okay. Why are we talking about positions? Remember, for us to print out something, in the first example for arrays, if we wanted to print the number 1, we said arrays start at position 0. So we simply need to call out this array, which is numbers. Then inside this, we put a 0 to specify that we need to print out the position for 0. Same applies with these for loops. We need to know the position. So our positions are starting at 0 for the rows. Then they can be less than or equal to 1 based on what we've said, and they should be incrementing. They should be incrementing like from 0 to 1 and so on. So I plus plus means these rows will be incrementing. Okay. So now once we do that, we need to put these symbols for curly braces. Then we are done with the first for loop. Now we create an inner loop. So this inner loop we are trying to create is for the columns. These are for the rows. Remember, we have rows and columns. So for rows, we said we'll be using J. Okay, columns J. So we say for then int J. Remember, it's an integer. Again, it's equal to 0. And then J is less than or equal to 1. Then J should increment. Okay, just like we saw from here, it can be from 0 to 1. Okay, and J should be incrementing. So it can start from 0 going up to 1. So again, this curly braces. Now this for loop I'm trying to create simply wants to print out or to display this matrix. So if we want to display this matrix based on the question, we want to use a standard which is cout, which can display, which is also part of the O stream, output stream. So say cout. So those are the symbols for cout. Then we give a comment. Okay, let's not give a comment since we just need to display. So what you are displaying, for example, in the first example for arrays, we wanted to print to display a position 1 and this position 5. So we just need to say cout numbers, and that was the name of an array. Then inside the position we put 0 if we want to print 1. If we want to print 5, we say 4 because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the position for 5. Same applies with this. We want to print this matrix. We simply call out the name of that array. So you say matrix. Okay, that's the name for that array. Then these are representing rows, if you can remember. Then based on this, we are saying rows are I. So inside this, we put I to represent rows. Then J to represent columns. Okay, and now we are using these variables because they'll be storing that position for these numbers. More like if we say 0 in this it will print out 1 because 0 is storing the position for 1. But in this case, I will be storing the position for the rows and J for the columns. No wonder we're replacing them inside these positions. Then after that, we want to make sure that our matrix has spaces in between as shows. So we can simply use these symbols. Then before we say end line, we need to specify that we have a space. So we talked about this being the space in the introduction for C++. Then we don't want to end the line here, so we just come down, then we say cout. So here we can now end the line for our program like that. So we are done with this example. So we can say Ctrl S to save, then click on this symbol, terminal, then new terminal. Now I want to run this program. Remember our program is on desktop, then under the folder for loop statement. So we say G++, then what's the name for our program? It's introduction.cpp. So say intro, then tab on a keyboard, it will say introduction.cpp. Then if you want to specify the output name for the executable file to be created, you just say -o for output, the name of that output. In this case, we're talking about functions. Just say, we're talking about for loops. Just say for loops like that, then enter. Okay, so an executable file for loops has been created. So to run that, you just say for and then tab on your keyboard, okay, to say for loops.exe, then enter. So as you can see, this matrix is displayed to our screen. So we've combined arrays and for loops for us to do this. So if we just wanted to use for loops, how can we write that particular program? So let's do that. So without arrays but just for loops, to bring out this same thing, let me just clear this. We'll use for loops only. So we'll give a comment saying for loops. Okay. So remember, the first array was capturing the matrix, more like it was storing the matrix. So let me just bring you back. So this array was storing this given matrix. Then this for loop was displaying this matrix. So if we don't want to use arrays but just for loops, we need to create two for loops. One to store the value for this matrix, then two to display that matrix. So let's just erase this, then we'll say for loop to capture for loop to capture the matrix. So for loop to capture the matrix. So a for loop, we said start with 4, put these symbols int I, which is j, or for rows, is equal to 0 based on our position. Then I is less than or equal to 1 based on our position again. I plus plus, I should increment. Then we put the inner loop, which is for int j for the rows, is equal to 1 or to 0, then j is less than or equal to 1, then j plus plus, j should increment. Now, since here we want to capture the matrix, we simply need to say cout. Okay. So since we want to capture the matrix, we want to tell the user to enter these values for our program to capture them. So cout to display a statement which will enable the user to capture, to enter these values so that our system captures those values for us. So cout to display the statement, then cin will capture those entered values by the user. So let's give a comment. Enter number in. So why am I saying enter number in? So for example, if a user sees that statement, it will say enter number in, for example, 0, 0, and you know the number in 0, 0 is 2. So that will make sense. So enter number in. Since we're talking about position, we'll say enter number in I. Why I? Because I will specify the position for rows, then j for columns. So if it's row by column, so we'll say I, comma j to know the position. So enter the number in I, then we put comma, enter the number in I, comma, then enter the number in I, comma, j for the rows. Then again, we need to print out this so that it can be smooth. So what this means is that enter a number in I, comma, j. Then here we're telling the user that you can start entering something. So it's more like it's saying enter the number in I, comma, j, because these two can be a row if you are looking at this side, then these two can be a column this side. So I, comma, j is this position. I, comma, j is that position. So that's the meaning. So since this would display the statement to the user, simply need to say cin. Now to store those particular values, to capture those particular values entered by the users. So what are we capturing? We need to capture these values based on that array which we based on the matrix we have. So because of this, we need to create a matrix. So we need to create a variable here. Say variable. So we say int because we are dealing with numbers. Int matrix. So that's the name of our variable. Int matrix. Then remember it's a 2 by 2. We say 2 by 2. Okay. So here we won't put an equal sign more like we are creating an array. No, we are not using arrays. This is just a variable to show that we are dealing with a 2 by 2 matrix. So you can give a comment that 2 by 2 matrix, like that, if you want to understand what you're doing. So we need to store these values entered by the user into this matrix, which is a 2 by 2 matrix. So we'll say matrix. Now these are rows represented by I, and then the columns presented by j. Then once that is done, it means this for loop has created that first part we had for an array which was storing the value of a matrix given, such as that. So once a user enters 2468, it will be stored here. No wonder we don't need to put equal to whatsoever, because this is not an array but is just a variable which will store these values once a user enters them. So once this is done, we can now bring out another for loop which will now display the matrix. So if you want, you can put C out here, and then end line like that. So for us not to waste time, we'll just copy this, Ctrl C, then paste here, Ctrl V. Then we'll just say for loop to display the captured matrix. Then now here it will be the way it is, but we don't want to say enter number whatsoever, because we've already captured those numbers. Just need to display by saying cout. Okay, now what's the name of our variable? It's a matrix. So it's a matrix. So rows and columns I comma j, and then once we do that, want to make sure that we have spaces in between like we did in the first example. Then our program is done. Ctrl S to save. Then once we save this, we go to our terminal to run our program. So new terminal, make sure you are in the right directory. Okay, then say G++, and then name of your program. In our case it's introduction.cpp, so I'll say introduction.cpp-o to specify the output file. And then again I'll just say for loops, I want to use the same name for our output file. Then once you say enter, you just need to run this, which is created based on the name of your file. For me it's for loop.exe. So once I execute that, it will say enter number in 0,0. So I'll pretend like I'm the user. So I need to know the position in 0,0. So 0,0 is 2. So I'll say 2. Enter number in 0,1. Okay. So 0,1 is 4. I'll say 4. Then since we used end line here, so this first line, which is just this pair, is done. No wonder we have skipped a line because of end line. Then we've gone to the next line, which is this part, which has 6 and 8. So no wonder here there is a space because of the end line. So enter number in 1,0. So this is 1,0, which is 6. You say 6. Then enter number in 1,1, 1,1, which is 8. Okay, 8. So once I click enter, again there's a space because of end line, which is here like that. Okay, so it's saying 2468. So here we've captured each and every entered value by the user using this for loop. So this for loop was able to capture the values entered by the user. Then once we captured those values, which is 2468, this matrix has displayed those captured values like this, more like we did with the first example. Okay, so that's the meaning. But if you want to enter your values quickly, just know that the program goes like this: 2, 4, 6, 8. So this is how we are entering the values. Now imagine if we had to find the determinant for this particular matrix. What can we do? Okay, so in this case, the determinant, we say the determinant, which is D of this matrix, is equal to major diagonal minus minor diagonal. So major diagonal MA, major diagonal minus minor diagonal MI. So the major diagonal, we have 2 and 8. So it's 2 times 8. So that's the major diagonal. Then we say minus, so the minor diagonal, we have 4 and 6. So we say 4 times 6, like that. So 2 times 8 is 16. Okay, then we have a minus. 4 times 6 is 24. And then 16 minus 24 is equal to negative 8. So that's how we can find the determinant. So in C++, it's good to know how to find or know the solution for something before you start writing your program. So since we know the expected output, also know the formula, we can just write that using a C++ program. So if you wanted to find the determinant, you can simply come down here, then say finding or calculating the determinant. Just give a comment. So since determinant, the expected answer is also an integer, you need to say int, you specify the type. Then since we're talking about the determinant, we say int d for determinant is equal to, remember we have under the major diagonal we have 2 times 8, but these are coming from this matrix, and the name of our matrix is called matrix based on the variable we have given it. So we need to call out this matrix and these positions, but we have square brackets, then minus square brackets, these brackets again. So start with the brackets, then we need to call out that matrix, okay, the name, then a matrix has position. So 2, this 2 is under position 0, 0. So you need to say 0, again 0. So to represent a 2, that's the position for 2. Then as you can see here, we have a times multiplication symbol. So now we put times, which is a star. Then we have 8. So 8 is represented by 1, 1. That's the position. So here we say 1 and 1. That's the position for 8. So we are done with the major diagonal. We say minus, so we come out. Then we say minus. Now now we find these square brackets here. So we say minus those square brackets. Then remember, we need to call out this matrix again to put these positions. So the name of our matrix based on this variable is called matrix. So you say matrix. Oh, by the way, we also call it even here. So sorry for that. You say matrix. So we have a 4 here. So the position for 4 is 0, 1. Okay. So say 0. Then we put 1. That's the position for 4. Then we have a times. So it's represented by a star. Then we call out the matrix again. And then we have the last number. So the last number, which is 6. So 6 is in position 0, 1, 0. So we say 1, 0, 1, then 0 to represent the position for 6. Then once we are done, just do that. Okay. So this is the formula which will be used to calculate that determinant which was giving us negative 8. So we want to find this value with our program. Okay. So since we've used this formula, more like this is where we store the values which will be entered by the user, that 2468. Then once it's done, we just need to display the determinant. So give a comment by saying cout, then the comment will be determinant is equal to, so remember the value for the determinant is d, so say d. Okay, so because the determinant is equal to d, which is this value which will give us the answer, then we just need to end the line like that. Okay. So once we say Ctrl S to save this program, come to our terminal, new terminal, then we say okay, so we say G++, name of our program, which is introduction.cpp, then -o for output file. Again, I want to call it for loops, like that, for loops. Then enter. Now I need to execute this executable file, which is for loops.txe. Enter number in 0, 0, so it was 2, 4, 6, 8. So it's saying determinant is equals to -8. So as we can see, our program is successfully working. So this is all about for loops. With these few examples, I'm sure you've learned something and you understand how for loops do work. So now this was video 1.1. Now in video 2, we'll discuss about arrays and for loops, how we can use them to find the number of lines in social network analysis. Then video 3, we'll discuss about arrays and for loops, then how to use them to display the nodal degrees of a given node. Then that's video 3 if I'm not mistaken. So video 4, it will be arrays and for loops and how they can be used to display or capture this adjacent matrix. Then it means we'll be done with this particular slide, so be on the lookout for those videos. So that's it for this video. Hope you can start practicing these questions if you have access to these materials faster before we do the videos. So thank you for watching. My name is Soko James, representing KMU Cyber Security Tutorials. So these are the CYS tutorials, online classes for 2024 to 2025. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and also subscribe to my personal channel, which is linked below this channel under the tutor sections. Okay, so yeah, that's it.